Hey, welcome to the Love Shack. It's a little old place where we get together, explore fresh perspectives, eavesdrop on juicy conversations to discover the things that really matter in our relationships. This is episode number 87. How it is you can travel the world with your partner and still be lovers when it's over. Could you do that?
Is that
Could
possible?
you? Yeah, travel the world and still be lovers when it's done. As the saying goes, if you want to really test your relationship, go ahead and just travel together. It's going to bring up a lot of things that go on between you that we don't necessarily pay attention to in everyday life. We want to talk about today what is the easiest way to plan a trip. And here's the thing. How does a couple risk being lost in a foreign place?
Feel confused about public transportation.
Perhaps struggle with making sense of the restaurant menus.
Spend more money than you planned.
I know that's one that I can always tell you get sweaty over. Disagree on sightseeing. Oh, yeah, we've navigated that one for
One is
sure.
seeking the beach. The other is looking for museums.
Yes. Historic artifacts. Hi, we're Tom and Stacy, and we're here with a guest, Janet Forman, who just happens to be a travel expert, writer, and photographer. For decades, her and her husband have traveled together, and we are here together to help you navigate the ups and downs of travel, both physically and emotionally as a couple.
Yeah, and if you take in what we're going to share with you today, your odds to having a great experience are going to go up exponentially while spending some much needed time away from everyday life that we all need. And again, it's going to improve dramatically, and moments that matter will remain in your memories as a result of taking these tips and such that we're going to share with you here momentarily.
Yeah, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
I met Stacy and Tom about 2 years ago. I was at a point in my relationship where I was ready to file for divorce. Not that I wanted to, but I just felt hopeless and helpless. I'd been through other counseling and coaching and didn't find any success. With Stacy and Tom's methods, I was able to eliminate insecurities, set boundaries, plant my flag, eliminate rabbit holing. I was separated from my wife for a year, and I have since moved back home for the last 6 months now. I still refer back to a lot of the teaching that Stacy and Tom provided, and it's helped me. It's well worth it.
Don't let fear or doubt hold you back from learning what to do about your struggling relationship. Sign up for Stacy's new mini course, 5 days to save your relationship, to learn the 3 things you're missing from your relationship and get the exact roadmap you need to take to save it. Get instant access at stacybartley.com/5-days. That's stacybartley.com/5-days.
Are you ready to venture off the beaten path, expand your mind, raise your consciousness, and open your heart? Allow me to entice you with interviews with amazing souls from around the world. Indulge in history, mystery, science, and spirituality. There's weekly skin tips, live esoteric readings, and answers to life's burning questions. So come join me, Sakura, your host, intuitive medium and spiritual hypnotherapist, each Wednesday at 2 to 3 p.m. right here on KKNW for Love from the Hip.
Hi, I'm Coach Debbie from Story U Talk Radio, and I want to encourage you to write your book. Weekly, I offer topics about style and storytelling. I take your questions on our live show every Thursday at 4 o'clock, or you can subscribe to Story U, that's capital U, on any of your favorite platforms.
Hi, I'm Stacy Bartley, the author of my new book, Feeling Like Marriage is Dead, a divorce mediator's guide to ensuring a lifetime of love. In this book, I integrate a no-nonsense grip on reality with a compassionate understanding of human behavior to provide you with a systemic approach to marital bliss that is easy to understand and implement in your life. Read this book to find out how to make marital magic happen, and you can do that by going to lifetimeoflove.me. Again, that's lifetimeoflove.me.
No other station delivers this much variety. Alternative Talk 1150.
Hey, here in the Love Shack today, we are going to talk to Janet Forman, and she's a journalist and film producer, winner of more than 60 writing and photography awards. Janet's been traveling the globe for not just years, but decades with her husband. And she is joining us here right now in the Love Shack with some incredible stories. And she's going to share with us how her and her husband have managed to keep their relationship strong while seeing some of the most amazing places on earth. So prepare to hear some tips on how to take the stress out of planning trips, along with navigating through difficult moments while on the road so you can make the most of your time together as a couple. Janet, welcome to the show. It is so great to have you here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So when I think about travel, babe, the minute I think about travel, I go back to the morning that we were awoken by our Airbnb host at like 6 a.m. in the morning. And I remember him screaming your name, Tom, 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 come quick. Your car has been stolen. And I remember like waking up in my bed going, huh? What do you mean our car is stolen? And
Didn't have that scripted in our our travel plans. And this was in Italy, by the way. So,
down in Bari in the Puglia area. And I just think I don't have things like that happen to me in my life. Like I've never had a car stolen, period, let alone while I'm traveling, right? How is this possible? And he was really sweet. He took us down to the police station and helped us communicate. Thank goodness he was wonderful at speaking English. And then I come to find out after being in Italy for 5.5 weeks, all of the souvenirs that we have collected, we were towards the end of our trip, were also in the trunk of that car. And so the reality of like, oh, the pupa, that was my biggest heartbreak, was the pupa, which is a little statue about a little story in one of the towns there. And all of a sudden, you start thinking about all the things now that are gone in addition to the car. And Tom, why don't you tell us what the big kicker was? The big kicker to the whole thing was,
make sure you get rental car insurance at the counter. Don't get it through if you do it over the internet or on the web or whatever, because that was a $3,000 deductible and a $3,000 mistake that I am lovingly sharing with all of you. Make sure you buy it at the counter. So no, really nice. This was a friend of our host that was at the counter, and he said, in international travel, it's different than if you're in your same country. Make sure you buy it at the counter. Yeah. And yes, that was some additional, as we like to say, salt on the wound.
Yeah. So the car was gone, souvenirs gone, and we had a $3,000 bill. A time the end was near. So Janet, I would love to hear some of maybe your challenging travels with your husband,
or maybe a top one that comes to mind.
Well, I as you were telling me about your theft, I was just thinking about our theft. Well, first of all, let me just say that by way of introduction, my husband and I met really because of travel. We met in graduate school, and we started talking because we had both spent the previous year in Europe. I was in Holland and he was in England. And we discovered that we both just loved to travel, and we just couldn't stop talking, and we've been together more than 50 years. So and over those 50 years, travel has always been kind of our first priority. I mean, in a way, when we were younger and we didn't have any money, we would say, let's go to Paris this weekend, and I'd say, okay. And if we could travel and have a nice house and eat nice food, then that was great. If we couldn't eat nice food and have a nice house, that was okay, as long as we could travel. Wow. So the two things about that is that first of all, we've been together more than 50 years, and travel throughout that whole thing has been sort of the lifeblood that keeps us turning. And these last couple of years have been brutal. Mm-hmm. Because, in every way, because you just couldn't, you couldn't travel for pleasure. There were people still traveling for work. They were really nervous about it. But nobody was traveling for pleasure, because it was not pleasurable. And of course, you couldn't even do it for quite a while. Mm-hmm. But what I was thinking of is we had an experience almost exactly like yours. We were on the French Riviera and we were going to the Cannes Film Festival, and we were at a small hotel on Cap d'Antibes, a very small kind of. I mean, Cap d'Antibes is like the Hotel du Cap, at $5,000 a night. That's not where we were. We were at a sweet little mom and pop place, and we went to. We woke up one morning and saw that everything was that our watches were gone. We
Oh,
had put our watches, next to us on the night table. Our wallets were gone. Our plane tickets were gone. We had locked the terrace. We had locked we were careful. We lock everything, and we didn't know what was happening. And we go outside. We come out of it was a little apartment actually. And we go out, and we see the owner, and he has the face you don't want to see on an owner, a very
right.
troubled face. And he has our plane tickets in his hand.
Wow.
That was during the time where you had actual plane tickets.
Right.
And he says, and then he had our wallets, and he said, I found these on the lawn. And of course, there was no money in the wallets. And I said, my God, how did somebody get in? He said, did you close your bathroom window? This big.
Wow.
Tiny bath, which we never even thought to close. So it seems that gypsy children, little children, like 6, 7 years old, had been coming through those teeny little windows and grabbing while we were sleeping.
Wow.
And very quietly, and grabbed all the stuff they could. And the cleverness about those children we had piles of coins on next to our heads, on the night tables. They didn't touch the coins. So.
And how nice of them to leave your tickets and your wallets on the lawn.
They didn't
want that.
They didn't want that, and they didn't want the credit cards either. They just wanted the cash. So we went off to the police station, and there was a line at the police station of people reporting these exact thefts. And and then during the same trip, we parked our car because we were about half an hour away from Cannes. We parked our car in the municipal parking lot, and we came back at night after the screenings, and I opened the door to the car, and I said to my husband, have you been smoking? Which was a huge joke because we're virulent anti-smokers. And it smelled like Gauloise in the car. And then we looked around, we saw the window was broken. We saw the glove compartment had been open. There was nothing in the car to take, and the car was there. But so we go back to the police station, we go back to then we went to the car rental place and got another car. And I said, okay, this time let's park under a light, let's park right under one of these big lights. So we did. And the next night we came back, same thing.
Oh, jeez.
And it seems that, and what they started doing after that, what the rental cars started doing was taking off all rental car insignias from the outsides of the car, because the thieves always think there's luggage or valuables or people are traveling, which there very, very often is. But
well, and the reason why we bring this up, our dear listeners, is not because we want to scare you about taking travel. That is not our intent here. What our intent here is to help you right? Plan for those things, be a little more savvy around these things that they do happen. And when you are, especially outside of the US, traveling foreign, these things happen. And how do we protect ourselves as best we can against that? That's one conversation. But then the more important conversation is, how do you weather it as a couple? Because these things can unravel us so quickly. I say we turn into an emotional hot mess, and we do, and we're in this foreign place and we don't know what to do. And right now you're faced with a whole set of challenges, and our minds can go crazy places. And what a great time, as I like to say in my work, for an emotional push-up. Because here's the thing, if we don't learn how to do an emotional push-up, we're going to take this out on our partner. And then, okay, that doesn't go so well. And it makes really challenging, difficult situation even more dramatic, even more impactful, instead of problem solving to get through it. And so we want to talk about both of those sides. We want to talk about the physical. Yes, here's the planning, the travel part. Let's get the tickets. Let's, organize and get excited about our trip. And part of the thing that makes travel, in my opinion, so exciting is because you don't know what's going to happen. You're going to a new place, you're meeting new people and new foods and seeing new culture, etc. And we have to appreciate that that does expose us to a few more risks, and you do any amount of traveling, it's inevitable that you're going to end up with some of these things that we've talked about. Would you agree, Janet? I mean, yeah.
And that's, well, I have to say, in our case, it had the opposite effect. All of these challenges, that's why very, very often I travel alone, but it's just a gift when I'm able to travel with my husband, because when these things happen, we have each other to help solve the problem. We had always worked together. I was a film producer at the time, and that's why we were at Cannes, and he's a cinematographer. So when you're on a film set, and we would do commercials. I did a feature-length documentary, which is why I was presenting it at Cannes. But mostly production-wise, we would do commercials in foreign countries. So you can imagine, with 100 people, I'm trying to manage 100 people in a foreign place with foreign customs, and Tom is shooting, also with a crew that he doesn't know, and it's usually they're always fixers and people that speak English, but it just sort of doubles the the indemnity, but
and the stress.
But we're used to that because that was our job, to go to new places and gut level problem solving when these things happen. And so we just looked at each other and we said, okay, so what do we do next? And I was so glad that it happened when we were traveling together, because we could almost laugh about it. By the end of that trip, we were almost laughing about it because it was just calamity after calamity. And unfortunately, it was a year when they were having terrible, terrible theft problems, especially around the time of there are festivals in Cannes all spring and all summer. So there are always tourists in Cannes. So, just almost half the year they have problems with people trying to rob tourists. And so it really was their problem. It was their problem too. So
yeah,
we had
what
to choose, and
I loved what you said, and sometimes we forget this, when we're trying to, we're spinning up inside of ourselves and we're frustrated and we're having to face things that we don't really want to deal with. We forget sometimes that there's an incredible resource sitting with me, right? And instead of blaming them or trying to decide who should have, shut the window, how come you didn't think about shutting the window, right? Or how come you didn't park the car in a better place? And he could have said, why didn't you take the souvenirs out of the car? What were you thinking? I remind you all the time. And the conversation can very quickly go into those kinds of places and saying, okay, here's where we are, right? Doesn't really matter how we got here. What are we going to do now? And I think that's such a great principle for life, but definitely comes front and center when we're traveling, because we're exposing ourselves to a lot of risk. And that's the beauty of it. But navigating that risk can sometimes be a great challenge there. So what I'd love to do in our remaining time together, if you're willing, is I've kind of thought about travel and I've broken it down into phases. And if we could talk about each phase, because each phase has their little nuances, you can give us some super tips on how to do it wisely with all of your incredible experience. And maybe we can talk about some of the emotional things that come up in each of these phases. So the first one obviously would be the planning phase, right? We're going to plan a trip. And even sometimes out of the gate, I know some of my clients, right? They go, oh, it's so overwhelming to even, we can't get on the same page about where we're going to go and how it's going to play out and how we're going to get there. And so, the conversation is a non-starter right from the get-go, right? So they're never going to get out because they can't really discuss how it is we want to go forward. So I wondered if you had any planning tips to kind of like make this easier and more smooth when we're kind of coming together and trying to decide where it is we want to go. And then what's the first step to kind of like executing that trip? Do you have any super tips for us there?
Well, I have a couple of tips, but I have to say, between me and my husband, we never have a problem. Everything that we want to do is okay with the other, because we grew up together. We met when we were in our very early 20s, and we really have the same taste. But I will say, planning wise, don't fill up your day. Just leave. On a lot of trips, what we do is when I'm not on assignment and we're traveling on our own, we rent a house someplace, and we decide this is our vacation, and we are going to do one thing a day. And in a way, what I'm saying is set your pace, but don't fill your day from bottom to top with things to do, because you'll be exhausted and you won't enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I stay in one place for about a week so that there's no rush. And I usually stay in places where there's nothing to see. There's just the beautiful countryside. There are markets. There are, personally, we've seen all the sites, which you really want to see. But because I remember taking my mother to Europe many years ago, and she had never, she'd been, but not, she wanted to go to a certain place, and she wanted to see the Eiffel Tower, and she wanted to see, so, I mean, most of us have done all that already. I go to a place where there's no agenda, there's nothing to see. It's just looking around carefully, slowly, getting there and then nosing around. Generally, what we end up doing is finding a town that looks really cool, driving there, finding a market, and sometimes we find the market and then we find the town, and buying food and bringing it home and eating it.
Mm-hmm. We did a lot of that when we were in Italy as well. And I do think that sometimes, especially if we're first-time travelers or we don't travel much, I think the tendency, and I've done this myself early on, where you power pack the days and you fly. And I knew several people that we met along our travels in Italy that were not only going to Italy, they were going to hit, Paris and France, or Paris, France, and Germany, and they were going to cross the border and go into Switzerland. And I said, gosh, well, how long are you going to be here? I'm going to be here, 10 days. And I'm thinking, oh man, that sounds like a tremendous amount of travel. And that's how you're going to be spending your time, is traveling from place to place. Mm-hmm. And you don't ever really get a chance to submerge yourself into any one place. Tom and I were in Italy for 5.5 weeks, and we stayed in Italy very intentionally. I didn't want to leave it, and we just didn't plan it other than our first week in Rome. So other than that, we just kind of made it up as we went, so that we could stay as long as we wanted to in a place, or we felt like we were done completing that, we would go to the next. And I have to say, it was one of the most enjoyable, fantastic places or vacations that we've been on, just because of the slower pace and not trying to pack everything. And so I think that's really important, that when you are planning your trip, don't don't try and pack so much in, because then it takes away from the experience that you can have, and it's going to stress you out, right? It's going to, we want to de-stress you. That's the point of vacation, right? To have new experiences, new cultures, new food. But gosh, it's kind of stressful anyway, because you are going to a new place. So don't make it more stressful by power packing it all in. Right. So, and as far as like planning a trip, are there recommended like travel days or ways that you go about just, I know for me, buying my airplane ticket is usually the first thing that I try and tackle, because I know once I have a plane ticket, I'm going. The rest of it, I can kind of fill in as I go. Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem real until I buy those tickets. So where are some great things to look for or explore to get some good deals on tickets?
Well, I mean, the first thing before I buy my tickets, I have to decide where I'm going.
True.
So that for us, when we're traveling on our own, means renting a house. So the first thing that I do is find a house that I want, or two houses, or whatever we have time for. So then once I know so that's the first thing, and that's a big thing, because you have to be sure. That's a whole big complicated thing, whether you're gonna what kind of place you're gonna rent from. Do you know people you're renting from? Sometimes we've rented friends' houses. Sometimes I rent from small upscale companies. And then once I know where I'm going and what the dates are for the houses, because in Europe, very often they have restrictions like Saturday to Saturday. You have to come on a Saturday and leave on a Saturday. So you need to know that too, which kind of limits your dates. But once you have that, then you get your plane tickets. And the best time, well, actually, Saturday, I would say also don't travel on the day that you need to be someplace. Travel at least the day before, and then just overnight, even at the airport, or just very often. I discovered some of the most wonderful regions an hour from Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, where you can overnight for one night and get to the airport really quickly. And so that because the plane schedules are so crazy now, yeah, you can't count on your plane not being, your flight not being canceled or being sent someplace where you're going to arrive 60 hours later, or, it's a real problem now. They generally say that now, the good thing about computers now is that when you go to buy a ticket, whether you're doing it on points or paying cash, is they give you put in your dates, and then you can always click nearby dates. So usually you get a month, and they'll show you all the dates and when the prices are cheapest for your route. And generally it's on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday are usually the cheapest, but sometimes not. So that's why you just can get a look at, sometimes there's a holiday or something's happening there. That's why it's just good to really not just put in a date and say I must travel on this date, but to look at that spread of prices or points. Also looking for nearby airports. You can. Well, it just depends. You don't have to really head for. If you're going to Paris and you end up at Orly because you make a stop, that's okay too. If there's something with a stop in between where you can get first class or business class, really good business class for a lot cheaper, because New York to London's a lot cheaper. You look for that. Just look for alternatives. And
So you actually plan the days that the houses are open where you want to go. So you actually select the house first, and then you back into it with flight plans. And you also gave me a super tip when we were putting the show together that I want to make sure gets explored. And I'm remembering right now where you said, get an airplane agent on the phone, pay the $25 because they can see things and find things that we can't from being on the search engine. And I thought, that was brilliant. Like, it's worth the $25 to help them kind of coordinate and put your trip together, which I want to make sure we pass along. I thought that was beautiful.
Absolutely. And they can make all of the things that I just suggested, they can see far deeper than you can.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they can, especially about the airports, you don't know really which airport to plug in to get a cheaper rate. And they know.
Yeah.
That, you plug in Stuttgart, it's an underused airport, or they really they know the routes, they know which are the underused routes, they know which routes have opportunities for upgrades. They just know that's their job. They know all that. And even I mean, this is what I do. I don't know all that. I always call them.
Oh, that's great. So when we do finalize or come to the conclusion that this is where we're going, you and your husband have always been really good about defining what that is and being able to just go, right? It's like, you want to go there? Okay, let's go. Is that kind of how it plays out? Okay. Some of us are a little more stubborn than that.
Yeah, for the rest of the world that doesn't operate like that, I was going to say. So I would give us a super tip, Mrs. Bartley. What could we bring in the many frameworks and tools and strategies that we use with our clients? I mean, right around this area. Like, I want to go to the southern part of the country. You want to go to the northern part of the country.
Well, here's the thing. We are a lot more agreeable if we feel like we've been heard. So if we allow ourselves to dream and talk about all the beautiful places that we want to go and the things that we want to experience while we're there, realize before you shut the conversation down, we're just dreaming. We haven't bought the tickets yet. So take a breath and know that it's going to be okay. And once you hear your partner out, I believe in the principle of give first and give fast. So, sometimes in relationships, we tend to compete for airtime. And so let your partner dream, ask them where they want to go, let them explore that to the fullest that they're willing to. And then there's always a place where you can come back and say, okay, may I share what my thoughts are about this and what I would like to see and do while we go, 10 or 12 or 15 different places, right? And generally, once we feel heard as human beings, we're willing to hear and we're willing to negotiate. Where we get into problems is we start to kind of reel a little bit because you're talking about Asia and I'm talking about South America and we're not even on the same page. And then I get panicked that I can't go there and that my way isn't going to happen. And so then I try and shut your conversation down, and then you're disappointed because you didn't fully get to express yourself and dream about all the things that you wanted to do. And then that makes that really challenging for us to decide where it is we do want to go. So allow everybody to dream. It's called space, permission, breathe. You're going to get a chance to express too. But if we can give first and give fast, it makes room for everybody to kind of lay it on the table. And then once we feel heard, we're really willing to negotiate, contrary to popular belief. Right? Once I feel like I've had the space to go there with you and you get what I'm thinking about or where I want to go or some of the dreams that I have, then we can negotiate a little bit. But until I feel heard, I just want to shut it down and shut it down and shut it down. And I'm competing with you. No. But this is what no. We don't want to go there. No. So just be mindful of that. Right. And I would say, and we're going to talk about this and follow the fun. So I won't give that away, but just know we're going to give you some tips on how to do more of that. So let's talk about the packing. Do we have any packing tips? That would be the next piece.
Pack light.
Yes.
Pack light. I have to say, my husband is terrible at this. This is probably the only place where we do have arguments, because he just has to have the refrigerator with him. I mean, he has to have. Well, I have to say, he's a photographer. He's a cinematographer. He wants to have all his camera equipment. These days, there's so much electronics that I mean, even I have to have, I have to have my computer, I have to have my iPad, I have to have my phone, I have to have it, that electronics weigh a ton. And in a way, I'm not willing to give that up. And, it's just a question of um, looking at everything you're taking and saying, can I wash this? Can I buy this? I mean, a lot of things that weigh a lot, if you need it, you can buy it. If you're going like to a civilized place, you can always buy these like drug items or another shirt or another pair of shoes. Or I mean, it is very important to have the right kind of shoes, but in the wintertime, it's really a challenge because I just end up wearing my heaviest boots on the plane, but the wintertime is more of a challenge. Summertime, it's a lot easier, but you do need, because you're going to be walking, you need a lot of, you need
Yes.
to be sure about your shoes. But the one thing that I always recommend, and my husband does not do, and he pays for this, is start packing a week before. Open your suitcase, start putting in everything a week before, or as long as you can hold off doing laundry on all those things. Because I find that if I start a week before, the next day I say, oh my God, I have to take this. Oh my God, crucial things that you really need. And the things that if you pack all at once or the night before when you're really tired, you end up making some poor choices. You end up saying, well, should I take this or this? Oh, I guess I'll take them both. And there and you also end up forgetting crucial things like your power cable.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Your chargers. I've done that.
Yeah, and what I do is, I mean, I always have to have things charging, just till I walk out of the house or walk out of the room. So I put the stuff where I can trip over it, so that if I can't possibly forget it. I don't put it on a shelf near the outlet. I extend the cord all the way, and I put the phone, the computer, the iPad right at the with the cords all across the floor, so that I'll kill myself if I don't wrap
Well,
it.
and here's the thing, if you as a couple are struggling with trying to get all of your gear from one place to another as you're moving around, there's nothing that can incite a fight than that. And I'll never forget Tom and I felt like we had packed pretty light until we were rushing to catch the train to Venice, and we almost missed it. And, we're tripping over our luggage and we're pulling it. We're trying to get it through the crowd. And I've got, 3 bags that I'm trying to wrestle with. And Tom jumps on and I'm running along the side, like tossing my luggage to him for real
No.
as the doors are going.
Oh, no.
And I remember getting on there and thinking, anybody want a bag? Anybody want some clothes, some shoes? Like, they are so free right now. And I thought, next time we do that round, it's going to be 4 items that we can wash and wear again and again and again, because every place we were staying in had washers.
Yeah, and I remember us being, we were on a lot of different trains, and you could clearly see the people that were seasoned travelers. Many times they were younger folks, and they had it dialed in. They did not have more than they needed, and it really, you could tell it just adds a lot of levity and ease to your experience when you're not. And like I said, we didn't have a ton, but it was still quite arduous at times, no question.
And trains are the killer, because you can't, if you have big suitcases, you can't take it with you to your seat.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to put it in that rack between,
right,
at the end of the
cars.
You can't see it. And we had a bag stolen that way. My husband had a bag stolen that way. And ever since then, if we have, I mean, it sounds crazy, but I sit and I watch I whenever the train stops, I walk back there and I just sit and watch our bags,
Yeah.
because um and if we only had like one small carry-on, which I try to do sometimes if we have a home base and we're going, just on a day trip or 2 days, something you can have with you or put on the right above you. It's almost impossible if you're going for a couple of weeks, but I've always found the old adage is if you can take the same thing for 2 nights as you would for 2 weeks.
Yes. I so agree with you. And that was a huge lesson.
Which I hate to do, but it's luggage is the
Oh,
is the devil.
it is. It creates so much unnecessary stress, and you think you're going to need it, and you really don't. You really, really don't. As you start to kind of pare down, it's so freeing to just go, and it just really saves a lot of stress between
Yeah.
us as couples.
I mean, if there's any doubt at all, I leave it home if
Yes.
I could possibly buy it.
That's a really great super tip. And I would say don't take more than 4 or 5 days with you. Just don't, because you can wear it twice and you can wash it. You're gonna be able to find some places where you can wash it. So, and then, fabrics and such, you can find some that really easily fold up so you can have several things in a teeny
Right.
tiny bag. My sister always as we travel to her house in Utah, I take my little suitcase that I travel with everywhere, and she calls it my Mary Poppins bag. She's like, "What do you have in there? I can't believe that this is the case. You can just travel with this little thing." But once you go there, you'll never go back, because you just realize how freeing it is to not have to be burdened with all of that challenge. And it just really frees you up to not worry about those kinds of things. So as we talked a little bit about the next thing that I have, which is take it all in once you arrive. We talked about not planning so many things. We talked about, making sure that you leave plenty of time to just discover and explore where you are leisurely. So many of our wonderful memories were finding a fun little restaurant that we could stop and have, a little brunch in, or a bottle of champagne, meeting people, having conversations. And there was really no rush to push through, because we have a tour, we have something else. And so I love that idea that you gave of one a day is plenty. And we even skipped a few days. Once we arrived in Rome, we just had a whole day to do nothing, to kind of acclimate and figure out where we were and how the transportation worked. And so, de-stress this. I think oftentimes what happens when we're traveling is we think we need to try and get it all in, like hurry, hurry, hurry. And that's a mindset that is very scarcity minded, because you're saying, I'm never coming back here, right? I'll never be able to do this again. And if you could imagine for a moment that you could come as many times as you wanted, how would you enjoy it from that perspective? Like, I can come back here anytime. There's plenty of time. I can do this again. And help us slow down a little bit. I always say that that's a really good principle. Slow down, because the faster we go, just like you said, we forget things, we overlook things, we make poor decisions, and then we're just reeling. And it's a funny thing. We think we can get ahead of that reeling, but we really can't. Your best course of action is to pump the brakes and pause a little bit from that place. So I want to also talk about homebound. Okay, when we know that we're returning, right? This is when the flood of memories from our experience start coming in. And because you're a photographer, and your husband and a writer too, and you're a writer as well, I wanted to also ask you, in our few minutes remaining, do you have any tips on how to capture memories, right? Because we're going to come home and our mind starts to think, oh, that was so great. Remember the person? I think Tom and I were on the plane, and we're already scrolling back through our trip, and some of the highlights of our trip. I wanted to see if you had any capturing ideas of memories.
Well, what I do, and I mean, I do this because it's my job, is for about a week. I'm always taking notes, because I am a reporter, and I'm always taking notes and writing things down, and I'm always taking cards from all the places that I see, so that I don't get anything wrong. If there's a piece of paper to take, I always take it. So then I come home and I sort everything out, and I on my computer, I take transcribe my notes onto the computer, and then the pictures. And I have to say, we can come home from a trip because my husband is a photographer, and we can come home with 10,000 images.
Wow.
So I go through, it takes a long time. I go through every single image and I cherry pick and I label each one very carefully. And I have a system where I put, I start so that they'll stay together in my computer. I started out uh, France, Paris, always France, Paris, and then, just smaller and smaller and smaller, so that all of these things will stay together on
Mhm.
my computer. But I cherry pick. So if there's 10,000 images, I will, which is a lot. I mean, that's
It is a lot.
a lot of images. I will cherry pick maybe 100.
Oh, wow.
I think I'm going to need for my stories, but it works on a personal basis too. And carefully, then I correct them also. I mean, every computer has these wonderful little fiddle buttons you can fiddle with, and very often you can correct. And you can get all kinds, and I've won awards for pictures that I've taken that when I look through the viewfinder, one time there was a pea soup fog so thick that we had to hold on to each other. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And to
Wow.
get from this castle to the car, which was parked 10 feet away, we all had to form a line and hold each other. It was total pea soup. And I was taking these pictures because I saw there was a man standing there and I could see him with my eye, but my camera didn't see it. And I just took a zillion pictures. And when I got home, I fiddled with my computer with the contrast and fiddled and fiddled and fiddled. And then it turned into this fairy tale picture. And it won like every award that year. So,
Wow.
but it takes time, and you have to really analyze. You have to be a very good editor of your work, and a very good compulsive labeler, so that you'll be able to pull them up and have them.
Yeah.
And of course, these days they make books. They make paper books out of. You send them the images, and they can make a book out of. I've never done that, but people do it, and it's very nice.
I think one of the greatest gifts you gave us from our trip, babe, is you kept just a journal of every day, what we did and some of the highlights and some of the challenges, because, as much as you think you're not going to forget, you do. And so it's so fun to go back and as you're saying, Janet, marry the journal and the pictures together, because that's just such a fun way to relive the trip over and over and over again. And you do forget. So that's a fun way to remind ourselves.
And also your American Express bill. I even kind of enjoy paying my American Express bill.
Yeah, that's so true.
I can remember. And that's very often where I go if I'm missing a crucial piece of information or I don't know what something is, I'll go to my American Express bill.
And there it all is. Janet, it's been so great to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here in the Love Shack with us.
Thanks.
Unfortunately, it's time for us to say goodbye, but I just want you to know what you've shared today and your stories and your smile has meant the world to us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're going to have a quick break, and we'll be right back with some Follow the Fun and a Can You Feel It moment. We'll be right back. Hey, babe, did you know that the average couple spends only 2 hours a day with each other? And the majority of that time is spent eating, watching TV, and surfing social media rather than connecting with each other. And if children are involved, my gosh, it's even less time than that.
I know, babe. That's why you created our conversation cards for connection, because they're the perfect conversation starter. So the next time you're sitting on the couch, rather than turning on the TV or grabbing your phone, pull out a card and get ready for some good old-fashioned laughter and love and connection.
Yeah, you can get your cards at StaceyBartley.com.
Find out the latest about your favorite shows on Alternative Talk 1150. Check out 1150kknw.com.
Okay, so here is our Follow the Fun moment. We've got to, of course, make it around travel. I mean, that would just make sense, right? So I want you to take an evening over a bottle of wine or your favorite beverage. And I want you to explore dreaming together. Like this is co-creating together. And it's one of the most beautiful things we can do in our relationships with our partner. We co-create all kinds of things. But when we're thinking about travel, going someplace, it doesn't have to be to a foreign place, but just camping in your hometown or going down the street, putting together the ideas and the plans are half the fun. Also, sometimes they're half the battle. And so what I want to invite you to do is over this beautiful favorite beverage is to practice allowing each of you to take in and express all the things that you would love to try and explore and see and do, because that is a magical place where if we can take that journey with our partners, it can be a magical ride for everybody. And that conversation can go back and forth. I'm going to encourage you to just brainstorm a bunch. And then if you do want to book a plane ticket, one of my favorite ways to do this is to put my destinations in a little app called Hopper. And it's pink and it's got a cute little bunny on it, because what Hopper will do for me it will keep notifying me of where this ticket purchase is headed. Is it too expensive? Is it too high? So not only does it remind me of the places that we've wanted to dream of, it's also going to tell me the best time to purchase on different airlines.
Yeah, it will send you a little notification say, price is X, but we expect it to go lower. I mean, it really has some crazy AI that's going on.
Yeah, and not best yet, you're not going to forget about that brainstorming session.
It's a fun. It's a good notification if there is such a thing.
It's a good notification.
Good notification.
So enjoy it. And if you're not already on our fun list, do so, because we're going to we give away stuff here on the show every month. You get fun weekly tips about how to follow the fun in your relationship. And if these feel out of reach for you, well, then that might be a sign to get some help and some support in your relationship right now. And sooner is always better than later, because relationships fail because they run out of gas, not because there aren't solutions for the challenges that you're facing. And I'm going to say that again and again and again. So as we land this episode, we always have a song. So if you want to go and listen to the song for every episode, you absolutely can do this. And I'm going to take us way back. And I know I'm reaching here for sure, babe.
This is an oldie but goodie. Oldie but goodie. We're going to date ourselves.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, absolutely. It's true. It's the Staple Singers, and the song is "I'll Take You There." And I can hear the lady welling in my head as I say it, as the song says, there's nobody crying, there's nobody worrying, and baby, I'm going to take you there. We're going to go together. And I just think, that's the gift of travel, whether it's far or close. We get to step out of our everyday lives and we get to explore and try on some new things, which, by the way, is novel. It's different. It's unique. One of the things I remember being in Italy, babe, is how slow the days were, because everything was so new.
Everything is new. I mean, literally from how things and people drive. Yeah. We didn't even get into our many using Google Maps and going through the roundabouts that talk about a stressful situation.
Yes.
Very stressful.
Yes.
Honey, it's not telling me right or left. You want me to make it up, or do you want to wait? We got into some interesting conversations.
Do you remember the day that we were driving down the hill and almost drove the car in the middle of the night off of
yeah. Oh, because... sure. I said, anyway. I'm not sensing we should be going down. Well, this is where the navigation is taking us. And we walked down there the next day and we died. Oh my gosh. Thank goodness we didn't go there, because we're not in a 4-wheel drive.
We didn't do so good with the rental car this time.
Well, that was up in the beautiful Tuscany region, and my gosh, the directions to that house were a wonderful place. But man, I'm amazed we got there.
Mm-hmm. So, if there's anything that you've heard of that inspired you or made you smile in any way, shape, or form, or you got some super tips out of here that you want to pass along, we would ask you to do so. We need to spread information about love and relationships, and we can do our best together collectively as a community and as friends and family to make the world a better place by addressing the relationships that happen at home. So it's been a pleasure to be here with you today. And also, if you have any questions or subjects that you would like us to cover here on the show, please reach out to us and let us know. We're always interested and committed to having the conversations that matter most to you in your life and in your relationships.
And if you want to know how we can help support you wherever you're at in your relationship journey, just reach out
go to our website, staceybartley.com, and the Work With Me tab will explain exactly how we work with you.
Yeah. So, okay, that's it for another week. It's a wrap. Enjoy your week. Have some fun dreaming. And we look forward to being back here with you again in the Love Shack. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks for joining us today in the Love Shack. We hope you came away with something that made your toes tingle. To learn more about everything you heard on today's show, go to staceybartley.com/podcast. Love the show? Help us spread the love by sharing the show with others. Okay, everybody, time to go. We got to close the doors to the Love Shack for this week. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Come back next week, though, and join us for another edition of Love Shack Live with Tom and Stacey Bartley.